In Kyrgyzstan, you can kidnap a woman, force her into marriage, and if she doesn't report it within 24 hours, it becomes legal. Sound medieval? This law was written in 2013. Sound rare? It happens to 12,000 women every year. Sound unstoppable? That's where this story gets interesting. Look at this photo. Gold embroidery, a smiling bride, a feast that could feed a village. This is what the world sees of a Kyrgyz wedding. But what you're not seeing, the 4 men who dragged her screaming into a stranger's car 12 hours earlier, the way she clawed at the door until her fingernails broke. The moment she finally stopped fighting, not because she consented, but because they told her, if you run, we'll burn your family's home. These pictures aren't celebrations, they're crime scene photos disguised as culture. I spent 3 months in Kyrgyzstan, and every wedding invitation I received came with the same warning from local women. Don't ask how they met. Because in this country of 6 million people nestled between China and Kazakhstan, 1 in 3 marriages begins not with love but with what locals call alakachu, literally to take and flee. The sanitized English translation? Bride kidnapping. The brutal reality? State-sanctioned abduction that's been rebranded as romance. Bride kidnapping isn't some ancient relic gathering dust in museums. It's happening right now in broad daylight in a country that sends athletes to the Olympics and has McDonald's in its capital. The tradition dates back to nomadic times when stealing women from rival tribes was genuinely about survival. Access to different bloodlines, strategic alliances, resources in a harsh landscape. But that was when life expectancy was 35 and women were property. Today's version, it's violence with a cultural costume. So here's how it works. A man spots a woman, maybe at university, at work, or just walking to the market. He doesn't court her, he doesn't even speak to her. Instead, he recruits friends, usually 3 or 4 men. And together they plan what they call the taking. They follow her routine, learn her schedule, and then, well, they strike when she's most vulnerable. The very moment she's forced into their car, her life splits into before and after. The ceremony itself is psychological torture disguised as celebration. The kidnapped woman is brought to the groom's family home where she's surrounded by his female relatives, mothers, aunts, sisters, who form a circle around her, almost like a flock of crows. They coo and whisper, "See how much he wants you. Look at this beautiful house you'll live in. Think of the children you'll have together." It's emotional manipulation, honestly, so sophisticated it would make a cult leader proud. Then comes the white scarf, the juluk. It's made of silk, delicate as a spider's web, but you know, it carries the weight of a prison sentence. If she allows them to place it on her head, she's considered married. If she refuses, she risks being beaten, ostracized by her own family, or branded as damaged goods who'll never find another husband. The success rate of this ritual, 93%. And it's not because women consent, but because exhaustion, terror, and social pressure are mistaken for acceptance. And those wedding photos, they're not just memories, they're weapons. The family posts them on social media as proof she chose this life. They share them with neighbors, relatives, anyone who might question the marriage's legitimacy. The photos become a permanent record of her supposed happiness, used to silence her forever if she ever tries to speak out. Every smile is choreographed, every pose is evidence in a case that will never see court. I've seen these albums. Room after room of portraits where the bride's eyes are empty, where her smile stops at her lips, where you can see the exact moment the camera captured her giving up. But here's what chills me most. These photos hang in homes across Kyrgyzstan, passed down through generations as family treasures. Children grow up seeing them, learning that this is what love looks like. The economic factor makes it even more sinister. In a country where the average monthly salary is $300, wedding costs can exceed $5,000, 17 months of income for the average family. But kidnapping? It's free, no dowry, no negotiation, no expensive courtship, just grab and go. It's human trafficking with a cultural excuse. Think about your own social media feed. How many times have you scrolled past so-called exotic wedding photos from places like Central Asia or Africa? Maybe double tapping because the costumes looked beautiful, the ceremony seemed authentic, and, well, how many of those traditional brides were actually victims whose terror was edited out by Instagram filters and carefully cropped photos? This isn't just about Kyrgyzstan, this is about the global lie that tradition justifies suffering, that cultural relativism means we can't judge practices that destroy lives. We've been trained to see beautiful photos and assume beautiful stories, but sometimes, honestly, the most stunning pictures hide the ugliest truths. So the next time you see a traditional wedding photo, ask yourself, what had to be broken to make it look that perfect? And what would happen if someone told you the real story behind that smile? Here's what the kidnappers don't expect. A generation of Kyrgyz women who've turned their own tradition against them. These women aren't waiting for heroes. They're using the kidnapper's car charger to call police. filming their captors' faces for TikTok exposure, and walking into courtrooms with the same laws that were meant to protect their abusers. The statistics that should terrify every potential kidnapper. Well, 40% of attempted abductions now end with the woman walking free and the man in handcuffs. This revolution started with a law that, well, most people assumed would be ignored. In 2013, under pressure from international human rights groups, Kyrgyzstan made bride kidnapping officially illegal, punishable by up to 10 years in prison. The catch? It had to be reported within 24 hours, and the victim had to press charges herself. Politicians assumed this was a safe bet. After all, what kidnapped woman would have the courage, resources, or family support to report her own husband within a day? They underestimated the smartphone generation. Today, mobile phone ownership among rural Kyrgyz women has doubled since 2015, reaching 84%. But these aren't just communication devices, they've become weapons of liberation. A network of women's rights activists has created a digital survival guide that spreads through WhatsApp groups, Instagram stories, and TikTok videos. They've taught women to memorize emergency shortcuts on iPhones, pre-save lawyer contacts with one-touch dialing, and share real-time GPS locations in group chats with code names like Sister Emergency and Safe House Network. The most powerful tool? Documentation. Women are secretly recording their kidnappings, capturing audio of their captors admitting to the crime, filming the family negotiations where parents literally bargain over their daughter's freedom. These recordings become evidence that can't be disputed, can't be explained away as cultural misunderstanding, and can't be buried by family shame. Take the case of Elmira, a 21-year-old economics student from Osh. When 4 men dragged her into a car outside her university, her kidnapper bragged, "Your parents already agreed to this marriage last month." Classic psychological manipulation, make the victim believe resistance is futile. But Elmira had watched a TikTok tutorial just 1 week earlier, created by a lawyer who'd helped free dozens of kidnapped women. While her captor drove, boasting about his family's wealth and the beautiful wedding they'd have, Elmira secretly activated her phone's voice recorder. She captured him admitting to planning the kidnapping for weeks, discussing how much he'd paid her uncle for information about her schedule, even joking about how her struggles had excited him. When they reached his family's house and began the white scarf ceremony, she sent the entire recording to a feminist lawyer whose contact she'd saved under pizza delivery to avoid suspicion. By dawn, while the kidnapper slept peacefully believing his bride had accepted her fate, police arrived with a warrant for his arrest. Elmira's secret recording provided everything they needed for a conviction. "My wedding photos would have been his proof," she told me, her voice steady with quiet rage. "Now his mugshot is mine." The viral hashtag #AlakaChuims, not my tradition, has become a digital sanctuary where survivors share their stories and strategies. Over 200 kidnappers have been exposed through videos posted by their victims, complete with names, faces, and home addresses. The social media shame has proven more effective than decades of government campaigns. But the real game changer is legal aid. A group of female lawyers now work pro bono specifically for kidnapping cases, funded by international donations and crowdfunding campaigns. They've reduced their response time to an average of 4 hours from the initial call for help. Their success rate? 87% of women who contact them within 12 hours of their kidnapping end up free, with their attackers facing criminal charges. The conviction statistics tell the story of a tradition in collapse. 5 years ago, only 3% of reported bride kidnappings resulted in convictions. Today, that number has jumped to 37%. More importantly, word is spreading in the communities where kidnapping was once considered a legitimate path to marriage. Men are beginning to understand that grabbing a woman could cost them a decade in prison, their reputation, and their family's social standing. The resistance has also evolved beyond individual survival. Women are creating support networks that extend far beyond their own safety. They're teaching younger sisters, cousins, and friends the digital tools that could save their lives. They're changing the conversation in their communities, challenging the mothers and aunts who traditionally pressure kidnapped women to accept their fate. But perhaps you know the most powerful change is psychological. For generations, kidnapped women were told their resistance was useless, that fighting back would only bring shame on their families. Now, fighting back brings justice, media attention, and international support. The narrative has flipped completely. Submission is no longer seen as virtue, but as surrender to criminals. This isn't just a victory for Kyrgyz women. It's actually a blueprint for oppressed communities everywhere. Technology plus courage equals a predator's worst nightmare. When women can document their oppression, connect with allies, and access legal resources instantly, even the most entrenched traditions begin to crumble. The kidnappers are learning what happens when they target a generation that grew up with smartphones, social media, and the unshakable belief that their voices matter. They're discovering that today's victims are tomorrow's prosecutors, and that the tools they use for planning crimes can be turned against them. With well, devastating effectiveness. We're told traditions are unbreakable, set in stone by centuries of practice. Then why are these women cracking them open with nothing but smartphones and sheer determination to survive? The answer might change everything you think you know about cultural change and women's power. The most dangerous lie about bride kidnapping isn't that it's culture, it's that it's unstoppable. For decades, the world accepted this practice as an unfortunate but unchangeable reality of Central Asian life. International organizations wrote reports, documentaries showcased the horror, and activists held conferences. But everyone seemed to agree that tradition was too powerful, too deeply rooted, too culturally protected to actually defeat. The truth, this tradition is on life support, and the women it was meant to silence are pulling the plug. I went to Kyrgyzstan expecting to find helpless victims trapped by customs they couldn't escape. Instead, I met lawyers who work 16-hour days for free, teenage girls who hide emergency cash in their bras and taxi numbers in their phones, and grandmothers who whisper to their granddaughters, "Run faster than I did." This isn't a tragedy playing out in slow motion, it's a revolution disguised as tradition crumbling. What I witnessed in Kyrgyzstan isn't just about one country's battle against gender violence, it's proof that even the most entrenched systems of oppression can be dismantled when technology meets courage, when individual acts of resistance become collective movements, and when the stories we tell ourselves about unchangeable traditions are finally challenged by the people who suffer under them most. The women fighting back aren't just saving themselves, they're rewriting the rules for everyone who comes after them. They're proving that cultures can evolve, that traditions can die, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon against centuries of oppression is a smartphone in the hands of someone who refuses to accept that their suffering is inevitable. If this video disturbed you, if it challenged what you thought you knew about cultural traditions and women's rights, share it with someone who still thinks that's just their culture is an acceptable excuse for violence. Remember, wherever life takes you, home isn't just a place, it's a perspective. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. Your curiosity makes these stories possible, so keep exploring, keep dreaming, and we'll see you in the next adventure right here on Beyond Borders.